Welcome to the Digital Customer Experience Podcast by Kiosk. I'm thrilled to bring you stories, insights, and expert opinions on the ever evolving world of digital customer experience. Today, we are excited to have Paul Pryor, a distinguished figure in the digital strategy realm. Paul, an award winning digital strategist, best selling author, and a dynamic speaker, is currently leading the digital front at 3. Paul's expertise extends globally, having worked with Fortune 500 companies and startups across Ireland, the UK, the USA, South Africa, and Canada. His professional journey is peppered with notable accolades, including contributions to esteemed publications like The Guardian, The Times, and keynote addresses at high profile conferences. Paul's path also includes being a scholarship recipient in Silicon Valley, mentoring under the greats like Alan Moss. Stay tuned as we dive deep into the world of Paul Pryor. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Daniel, thanks very much. My mum would be proud of that introduction. I appreciate it.
Lovely to have you, Paul. And we are so excited to have a professional keynote speaker who's been speaking across the globe. But talking about keynotes, is there any funny incident that happened to you on stage when you were delivering a speech? Can you tell us some funny incidents?
I've loads to pick from, but the one that I probably come back to quite often is, how did I get into speaking in the first place? So when I was a younger chap, one of my friends told me we were out drinking because we're Irish people, so that's what we do. And one of our friends looked across one of my friends looked across the table at me and he said, "Paul, do you know that when you speak with your hand over your mouth, like as in almost like you're unconfident around what you're going to say, or you feel you've nothing important to say?" And I've always loved these moments since I was a child. Like, I just love people who take enough interest in you to point out something that can make a marked difference to your life. So that was the moment where I went, okay, I'm going to fix this. Now, what's available to me to allow me to fix this? Now, this is in my teens, like 18 or 19 or something like that. I was overage. It's okay. Please don't come around to my house. But so at that point, what I did was I actually signed up. I was in college at the time. I signed up to a conference in another college in a place of Ireland called Carlow, which many Irish people will be familiar with, to speak on a subject that I knew nothing about. So I signed up, said I'm going to go and I'm going to speak about it. And I think it was definitely something customer based. I remember that. I said, right, I'm just going to get through this, because the truth of the matter is, if I can stand up there, waffle about a subject that I know nothing about, and allow that feeling of pure humiliation sit with me, it can't get much worse than that. So I went down. It turned out exactly as I had described. So it took me about 45 minutes by train to get there. Got a taxi over to the college. Was made sure that I arrived 1 minute before it, so I didn't have to speak to anyone. Went straight in, up to the podium, looked at a load of people I didn't know. Now, there was probably only 30 or 40 people there. It was a small kind of like campus conference, Got up, spoke for 20 minutes, knew absolutely everything that was coming out of my mouth was absolute rubbish. Saw their faces in response to who's this guy and why he's obviously not an expert in this subject. got off the podium, walked straight out, got back in the taxi and got straight back on the train all the way home. So that was a moment for me where I learned that, it's kind of like Oprah Winfrey, feel the fear and do it anyway. But and that was my first inroad. I actually realized that through my process then of improving how I speak and becoming more confident and having more belief in myself in what I'm saying, that I actually started to enjoy this. So it was very organic, like I didn't do a business plan for becoming a speaker. It's just a very organic journey to it.
Oh, that's a great story. And I just want to ask, like, Paul, from an Irish pub or Irish speaker at 18 and now having a mentor like Alan Moss, that's such a huge shift and a change in your life as a person. But why is it important for anyone to have a mentor? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've always look, there's different definitions of humility, and depending on your definition, you may perceive someone as being a humble person or not, right? The definition that I really love is that, you have to go through life always understanding that you've more to learn. That, what you know is always going to be less than what you don't know. And I'm fascinated by knowledge. I've always been like that. I grew up in a household where knowledge was incredibly important. And, there was a lot of emphasis on academia. Now, whether that was the right route to knowledge or not, that's beside the point. But there was a lot of emphasis on what knowledge meant. And for me, I've been always interested in not just doing the average. If I want to understand what digital is, I could go to an Irish college, I could go to INSEAD, I could go to Harvard, or I could find the person who spent their whole entire life doing this and try to get in front of them and see what I can learn. And what I've learned is you have to do it all, right? You need the academic, you need the theory, you need the people who spent their lives working on it. So for me, mentorship is an incredible, important part of me gaining knowledge and gaining the experience of people who've been there and done that. And the way I met Alan Moss and others is, it's like, people often ask me this, and I know when we spoke first, Daniel, you were like, God, your background is so kind of eclectic. How did this happen? In my head, I just fell into it. I just I just did stuff that resulted in other stuff happening for me. So Alan Moss, I was working for a fintech at the time. I was 21. I was sent out to Macquarie Bank in Australia and New Zealand, and I was still talking like this through my hands, and to meet him. And he was the chairman of Macquarie Bank at the time, or Macquarie Group, actually. It was much bigger than a bank over there. And I was sitting outside, and he had 3 EAs. And I used to do something, again, a nervous twitch I had when I was younger, was I used to shake my leg. So one of the EAs was astute enough to see my leg shaking furiously and that I was nervous. She went into Alan Moss and said to Alan, look, this guy's going to be 10 minutes late. Took me down to the canteen. All this just happened. I didn't do anything except look nervous. And she said, look, don't worry. Look, he's a lovely guy, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, ultimately, she helped build up my confidence to go in and meet this person. 20 years my senior, incredibly accomplished, total imposter syndrome. But I walked in and firstly, this is what real great leaders do. He sat me down and he said, Paul, do you know what's going to be different about this conversation? He said, you're not experienced enough to be limited by your own belief systems.
Yeah.
He said, so the type of conversation I'm going to have today, which I'm really looking for, is a completely unfiltered, transparent, honest conversation around what your organization can and cannot do for me. And just those little moments in your life, certainly for me, have been so profound in putting me on the path for my next opportunity. And that's what life is to me. It's just, hundreds and hundreds of opportunities that you have the free will to choose whether you take them or not.
Brilliant. I think Paul Pryor basically is an unfiltered person, and he wants to have an unfiltered conversation. And I'm looking for it because Paul Pryor has worked with many startups, and Paul Pryor has worked with multinational companies. What's the difference?
Oh, God.
Let's go unfiltered.
If you think of the type of individual those companies attract, and it's a total generalization, we're all unique people, right? But so corporate entities, most people are looking for safety. Startups, particularly early stage startups, most people are looking to make a significant difference.
Yeah.
So the difference that you have then is in a corporate environment, there's a level of education that's required to make the space to have the really exciting conversations you can have. Because, people want a comfort zone. That's why they're there. They don't want to be taken out of their comfort zone. They're actually totally eject to it often. Startups are the opposite, which is, you almost have to bring them back to reality and bring some of the corporate governance around the decisions they make, because they only have a very finite amount of cash available to them. And that cash is highly subjected to them making the right decisions versus the wrong decisions.
Yep.
While a corporate environment maybe can afford risk to a certain extent, particularly if they're successful and have good cash flow positions, startups can't. The third thing I'd say is this is starting to change in the VC world now, but certainly when I got involved in it originally, most of the goals were on the basis of customer acquisition. Profitability came second. In a corporate environment, which I love, profitability comes first, and acquiring the right type of customers to inform that profitability is the MO. And I find the contrast, the overlap, and the differences between those two environments really, really interesting.
I love how the strategies differ for each kind of businesses, like startups and corporates and VCs. So, talking about strategies, what will be your strategy to solve problems with corporate organizations in the telecom industry?
Yeah, there's an element of being, self-aware enough to make sure that you're identifying the right problems. Because someone like me who's out there always doing stuff, always talking to, always mostly in rooms with people that are a lot smarter than I am, it's too easy for me to come into a corporate environment and just pick holes in everything. And that's not the answer, right? So firstly, make sure you're defining the right problem in the context that you're looking at. So the right problem, I know we're going to speak about this, but the right problem right now is telco as an industry has been a really successful industry, supported by companies like Apple and Google and Samsung and some other industries that are built around that. And we've had 10, 15, 20 probably years of really good success where we're working with a society that's very susceptible to what we do, sees the value that it brings to their lives. Now it's how do we maintain that success over the next 20 years, and has society shifted from the society that we built our first strategy on? And therefore, does the organization need to shift to respond to that?
Yeah. So if you have to list down as Paul Pryor, what would be your first strategy with this shift in the organization or shift in the people's behavior? What would be your strategy number one that you would focus on?
So the first thing is an acceptance that we're in a commoditized marketplace. So we now sell a product that's less exciting than it used to be, and is as ubiquitous as electricity.
Yeah,
it just is. It's like me sitting at this table or you using a microphone.
Yeah,
you have to use it, but unless you're a professional like you are, you don't think a lot about the quality of the microphone, the room you're in. It's just a microphone, right? So that's the first thing. Just us accepting that. We've had a good couple of years now. We're now in a commoditized marketplace. How do we make a difference?
Is innovation becoming harder as things are becoming more normal? Like, it's normal for everyone to have a smartphone. Does it make for the companies' innovations even harder to make them excited?
It doesn't make innovation harder, because innovation is hard.
Yeah.
It's just where we could have innovated previously, that option now is no longer available to us. So the question then is, where do we innovate now?
Yeah.
So it's just a shift. Like, the mindset of innovation is always there. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's always there. It's just where you're applying the mindset and frameworks.
Brilliant. So as you already addressed about the problems that the telecom industry has, now we want to jump in to find out what are the top 5 problems in the telecom industry that needs to be solved right now.
Yeah. So the first one we spoke about, an acknowledgement of commoditization, where people are now versus where we are now. I think the second one then is the natural way to look at that is look at that internally now, which is, what behaviors do we need as an organization carry us forward into the future? The third one is the shift in that operational model.
Yep.
So, the model that exists today for us, or historically, like we're starting to make inroads into this, but the model that would have been there for us historically is the perfect model for the company we were. Now we need the perfect model for the company that we're going to be. The fourth one is customer centricity. Like, I love these phrases. I used to be a consultant. I used to make these up, honestly. But so customer centricity, not just being this thing over there that we do presentations on, but we're genuinely asking ourselves right now, how can we make a marked difference in people's lives? I'm genuinely asking it. And that is an incredibly difficult question to answer. Incredibly difficult. And then the last one is just bringing the resiliency, the relevancy that we need to then carry that through. So Resiliency because this is probably the first paradigm shift in our industry since it was incepted 20 years ago. And relevancy because we're not as relevant as we were.
Yeah.
So how do we become more relevant? So they'd be the 5 things that we spend a lot of time thinking and talking about.
Yeah. Now the markets are changing consistently and there's AI everywhere. So this is a question that pops in my head every time I think about different industries. How will AI transform the future of telecom industry?
Um, can anyone answer that question in a general term? Probably not, right? So where if you're to ask me today, which you are, let's be honest, where do we see the usefulness right now, right? So from an internal basis, how can AI be leveraged to increase our productivity and consistency? So productivity in the context of, we've all been through this RPA journey now where it was, highly repetitive manual tasks. Where AI now is, it can help us do that in more complex areas where, maybe it's not as well defined. The process isn't as well defined. In terms of productivity with our customers and consistency of messages, it's, we are actually as a company very passionate that the brand experience that people have with us is consistent throughout every interaction that they have with us throughout the lifetime that we have. The unknown and the fallible factor in that is the human being factor, which is, we might know what we want to say, we might know what we believe, but sometimes it just doesn't come out right.
Yeah.
Like, if there's anyone who's an example of that, it's me. So it's just, how do we utilize AI to prompt us in the right way, to help us articulate the key messages we want to make, to identify things in the conversation, for example, if it's a chatbot, that we're not identifying because we're thinking about something else in our head and keeping us on track. And then, as you know, we're really fascinated around this, phygital space, so how do you, just because people love being in retail stores, I love being in retail stores. The only reason that I haven't changed my wardrobe in 3 years is because I have kids and I don't have the day to go to the shopping center to browse all the different things. Otherwise, even as someone as passionate as I am about digital, that's what I'd be doing. But it's, how do you offer that retail feeling, smell, experience through a digital domain? And equally, how can you bring familiarization of digitalization into the retail world so that people are getting the best of both worlds? Like, I think that's a really important consideration. And we have already started that journey with our Store of the Future program and having some of what I feel and what the market's telling us is some of the most forward-thinking stores that are available in the Irish market. Now, we have a lot of work to do to continue to make sure they continue to improve and that our vision for what they should be for our customers is actually achieved, but we're on that road.
Is there a huge investment going on with R&D with regards to AI in all of the telecom industries these days?
There's not a huge investment in anything. But so if you take the financial components out, because I actually think that's the easy bit, right? As in, having money available for stuff that's going to help us, as long as you've done the work beforehand, is never going to be a difficulty. It's basic logic. Where I'd say we're investing a lot of time is thinking and talking, as in, making sure that where we do take risks in AI, that they're calculated risks and that we're considering all the different elements, like the parts of the world that I'd be blind to, so what's our legal and regulatory obligations when it comes to AI, where's the consumer market going? How do we cater for companies or people where privacy is a real problem for them, where they want privacy, they don't want to share their data, but at the same time be able to give them the benefit of what that data can provide for them, so a lot of that's thinking. It's not even high level financial investment, I'd probably say, and I'm actually doing a presentation on this after this to the commercial department. I'd say in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have all the assets in our ecosystem that's going to be required for the next 10 years. Now we need to sweat them.
Yeah.
Now we need to talk to people, talk to customers, talk to, again, mentors, talk to people out there that have already done it. And we're all doing that. Like, we're all out there, we're even traveling to do it. We're
Yeah.
talking to companies that have cracked some of these problems to learn from. So I'm glad to see that my passion for mentorship is also alive and kicking
Yeah.
in the organization as a whole, because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who's doing this.
Yeah. And for example, companies like Samsung, Sony, they're collaborating with lens makers like Leica and so on. So, does the telecom industry, are they willing to collaborate with AI giants like OpenAI or Microsoft? Is there anything like that in the pipeline that the telecom industry is looking for?
Yeah, there is. I can't talk about it, but there is. But no, there is an appetite there, right? It's again, it's finite amount of time, because time is a resource just like everything else. Are we applying the time in the right way? So we are looking at things like, well, ChatGPT is such a misdemeanor for me. The technology's been around for 10 years, but I appreciate that it's now in the public consciousness, which is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But we are collaborating on, you know, how can that type of technology be useful to an organization like ours? Like, we use behavioral analytics in A/B testing our website to ensure we're using data to inform what the best journey for our customers is. Like we have, funnily enough, we've somehow managed to cross the chasm in being able to introduce some very forward-thinking technology into an industry that's not often forward-thinking in technology. You know, it's really interesting. Like, yeah, and obviously we took on, you know, the Gios platform for our customer interactions, which is all related to our digital strategy, which is, can we use this platform to offer our customers an in-store experience from the safety of our home? And the answer is we can. But where we often underestimate the time is, as a member of the digital team, I'll give you the technology. It'll be ready.
Yeah.
Now, organization, are you ready for me to give it to you? And we're spending a lot of time now talking around, where does operation and business readiness, should it come in that type of process? Because I still believe, you know, there's never a perfect time to do something. So we will always go hell for leather to introduce these technologies and educate people around what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe when the organization is ready to use it, it needs to be available right then and there.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's this constant dichotomy between, should you invest your time in developing something when you know exactly what the use cases are for it, or should you invest your time in having it ready, knowing that it's going to be required in the future? I'm more on the latter side of things, because time to market is so important in our world.
Yep. Makes sense. And this is a question that I've been wanting to ask someone for a while now, and it's been running in my head every time I meet someone from the telecom industry.
Lucky me, I get it.
Lucky me. I'm able to speak to you. The question that I have is, telecom industries, they have, most of them or almost all of them have similar products and similar solutions.
Yeah.
So how can a brand stand out in such a competitive field with similar products and similar solutions?
Operate better. Like, it's the only option, and this is well known. Like, even going back to the art of war, you know, it's a simple strategy in your mind, a difficult one to execute, which is, you know, we're a margin business. Every business is a margin business. There's a numerator and a denominator in that. The numerator is, are we selling stuff? And the denominator is, are we as efficient as possible in doing that? So the only way you can differentiate is to be better at productivity, efficiency, time to market, speaking to customers, responding to concerns, and just bridging the difference between all those different elements that are external and internal, so that you become the best at that.
Yeah. And because you're talking about technology and talking to the customer, we have had experiences in the past speaking to some of the companies that are operating on the same line as you. How important is customer experience playing a huge role for your brand to stand out? Because one of the persons from Australia who was a podcast guest, he said a really interesting quote that stuck to me now. Um, brand is a promise you make, customer experience is the promise you keep. So does it
Yeah.
matter for your brand to stand out?
Yes. So why does it matter? So if you think like, so I'm a big, oh, we could go everywhere with this, Daniel, but so I'm a big believer in jobs to be done theory. Because Clay Christensen was one of my mentors as well. He unfortunately passed away, but lots of people are carrying his work forward. So what brand does is it introduces the first thought, the point at which either the person doesn't know they have a problem or has a problem and don't know where the solution to it. Brand helps bridge that gap. Then, when they're into our ecosystem, the experience that we offer them, I completely agree, not just needs to meet the brand promise that's being made, but needs to be exceptional. Like, it needs to be absolutely exceptional. And what I mean is, you know, we're not selling toilet paper. Like, I get, like, you know, if I buy toilet paper in Amazon Fresh, I don't get overly excited about it. The level of outlay that's required from people to purchase the types of products we services we have is significant. It's not small numbers. So we genuinely want them to feel excited about this. You know, it's like when I have a young boy called Bodie. Like, so when he got his Nintendo Switch, his face, like, unbelievable. You know, like, and there's loads of components to that. I saw a YouTube video where one of the influencers I like was talking about Nintendo Switch. One of my friends in class that I want to like me has a Nintendo Switch. I saw a video on Minecraft. He loves Minecraft. Like, we all do. Let's be honest. He said one of the videos I saw was Minecraft. It's understanding those moments, like, as in, they're not just purchasing an electronic device. They're purchasing something that's going to, like, if you think in the context of him, that's going to make him popular, or it's going to help him feel popular, that's going to make him feel like he's as good enough as everyone else, that from a parent's perspective is going to allow us to take a 10-minute break while he's on it. Like, you know, it's going to develop his mind, because the type of things he's into, thank God, is like Minecraft and Roblox and things that are problem-solving games that I think will really stand to him going forward. That's your experience.
Yeah.
You know, the bit around how you get from, we now understand all the different component parts that are driving this person to want to hire us to deliver on that, to the point where the sale makes, is the easy bit.
Yeah.
So the two things have to happen. And there's so many other things than just brand and experience, or funnel effectiveness, as we would call it, that are involved in creating that type of environment. It's everything from how the CEO presents themselves in social media to, you know, how we respond when problems do happen in the marketplace. Like, are we good corporate citizens? Do we genuinely feel sustainability is an important factor for our business, which we do?
Yeah.
And it's about being authentic around that. It's not about being the BSer, you know, where it's a PR exercise. You know, people see through that. They know.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're got, like, I'd much rather work for an organization that says, you know what, something like sustainability isn't their number one priority at the moment, and it's open and honest about that, or just doesn't talk about it, which is probably the more appropriate way to do it, than one that says it is important to it. And then when you go in there, you realize that the DNA is not in the DNA of the organization. And you often see that in innovation. You know, let's spin up an innovation lab. I went through years of this. Spin up an innovation lab over that cool little space over there. And then it's just left over there. It's like, oh, it's just over there.
Beautifully
anyway,
put.
Bit of a long-winded answer, Daniel, but I gave you one.
Oh, I love it. Like, you know, especially when you finished with, it has to be in the DNA of the company. You don't have to put something that is a part of your DNA and people see through it, is very, very true. So, last part, coming to your DNA. So, we all know Paul Pryor is funny, intelligent, and really good at problem solving. But let's go back 20, 25 years. Paul Pryor has not chosen the field of digital or telecom, what would he do again? Giving the answer that you don't have an opportunity to choose this again, what would you do? What else would you do?
What else would I do? Because I'm actually one of these really lucky people that's doing exactly what they wanted to do. Really lucky.
Yeah.
And I knew it from an early age. Yeah, I knew where an early age. Now, what would I like to be doing more of if I was to go back? To be honest, making a difference in other ways, like charitable enterprise, philanthropy. Made like I'm already doing a bit of it. Like I'm working with a company that's looking at how to manage peer-to-peer payments in Africa, particularly for rural areas that don't have access to technology. And when I was at Digicel, we looked at that as well, as in someone who's in Haiti who was running a telco business out of a box. How do they buy and sell products? So I think I'd probably spend all my time doing that. I think there's so many. At the base of humanity, we're really good people. I think, though, society as a factor in that sometimes doesn't allow us to be a good person. And I think for me, when I'm 80 and I look back, one of the differences I'd like to have made is, even if it's one or two people, just like people have done for me, to positively affect their outcome.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Beautiful, beautiful, Paul. And with this, we have come to almost the end of our podcast. And from my side and from Kiosk's side, we would like to thank you. This was really insightful, and especially the stories that you said were funny and very, very interesting. So that we'll carry this forward. And your expertise with regards to digitalization and with regards to telecom is astounding. And we hope that we'll get to do another podcast with you sooner or later. And thank you very much, Paul. Is there anything that you want to tell to the audience?
No, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep. So to our audience, it was a amazing episode that we had. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more in-depth discussions on the digital customer experience, drop us a comment below with your thoughts or any questions that you might have for Paul or our future guests. Until then, stay curious, keep innovating. This is Daniel Paul from Kiosk.